100 boys, one endless road. No finish line, no mercy, no turning back. Only one is promised survival, and even that promise is a curse. This is Stephen King's The Long Walk, a story that does not celebrate victory, but instead reveals how winning in a world built on cruelty is just another way of losing. Whether in the original novel or the 2025 film adaptation, the ending refuses to offer comfort. Instead, it leaves us with two choices, neither of them clean: madness or rebellion. But the truth running through both versions is chilling. Under tyranny, survival itself can be the cruelest punishment. The Long Walk begins as a test of endurance, but it quickly unravels into something far more sinister. On the surface, the rules are brutally simple. 100 teenage boys must walk without stopping. If they slow below 4 miles per hour 3 times, they are shot by the soldiers who march alongside them. The last boy standing is declared the winner and granted anything he desires for the rest of his life. It sounds like a contest, but what unfolds is closer to ritualized slaughter, a performance of suffering broadcast for an eager public. From the very first steps, it becomes clear that this is not a path to glory. It is a path designed to break both body and spirit. King uses this relentless march to strip away every illusion of fairness, honor, or reward. The boys begin with bravado, laughing and teasing, but as hours stretch into days, the march grinds them down. Their bodies fail first, blisters burst, muscles seize, fevers rise, but the psychological collapse is even more terrifying. Each death is witnessed, each gunshot lingers in the air, and each boy is forced to reckon with the fact that their survival depends on the endless suffering of others. It is here that King's cruelty as a storyteller becomes clear. He does not let us look away. We march beside them, step after step, until exhaustion, fear, and despair seep into every word. At the heart of this bleak journey is Ray Garrity, the character who emerges as the novel's reluctant center. He is not a hero, not even particularly strong. What sets him apart is his persistence, his ability to keep putting one foot in front of the other when others collapse. Alongside him is Peter McVries, a companion who becomes something more than just another walker. Their bond is fragile but real, the one thread of human connection in a world determined to erase it. It is through Garrity and McVries that King forces us to confront the real question. What does it mean to win in a system that has turned life itself into a spectacle of pain? The answer comes not at the beginning, but at the end, an ending that denies the audience everything we expect. In the book, Garrity outlasts the others, but he is left hollowed, broken, and lost to madness. In the film, the roles shift, and it is McVries who survives, scarred by sacrifice and driven to violence. Both outcomes reject the idea of triumph. Both insist that there are no true victors in a death march. And yet, the way each version tells it, psychological collapse in one, violent rebellion in the other, shapes how we, as the audience, understand the cost of survival. What makes The Long Walk so haunting is that it is not just about endurance. It is about the way systems of power use spectacle to crush individuality. The boys are told they are competing for a prize, but in reality, they are being consumed by a machine of control. Every step they take is watched, measured, and enforced at gunpoint. The public cheers for the blood, the major oversees the cruelty, and the walkers themselves are reduced to pawns in a ritual that ends only in death. It is here that King's story moves from horror to allegory, exposing not just a dystopian nightmare, but the real-world hunger for domination disguised as entertainment. This first section sets the stage, but it leaves us with questions that demand answers. Why does Garrity keep walking when victory only means emptiness? Why does McVries in the film turn his grief into rebellion? And most importantly, what does winning actually mean in a contest where the only options are death, trauma, or violence? The answers lie in the endings, and those endings, as we will see, reveal the brutal truth. In The Long Walk, survival itself is the cruelest illusion. To understand the meaning behind The Long Walk's ending, we first need to follow the breaking point of its final survivors. The novel narrows down to Garrity, McVrees, and Stebbins, the mysterious loner who later reveals himself to be the illegitimate son of the Major. His presence changes everything. Up to this point, the walk seemed like a cruel but impartial contest. But Stebbins' collapse near the finish line exposes the truth. The walk is not about merit, endurance, or fairness. It is about control. The Major is not only the cold face of authority, but also a father willing to toy with his own son's life in front of a nation. By allowing Stebbins to march and then die, the system exposes itself as a grotesque farce, built not on justice, but on cruelty disguised as entertainment. After Stebbins falls, the road belongs to Garrity and McVrees. Their bond has grown over miles of shared exhaustion, humor, and despair. But when McVrees can walk no longer, he makes a choice. He sits down, smiling faintly, surrendering himself to the rifles. Garrity is left alone, declared the victor by default. Yet King refuses to let this victory taste like triumph. Garrity has seen nearly 100 deaths, including those of friends he once leaned on for strength. His body may have survived, but his mind has been ground down until only the march itself remains. When the Major descends in his helicopter to crown him the winner, Garrity does not hear or care. Instead, he sees a phantom figure on the road ahead, calling him forward. With his last ounce of will, he shouts, "I'm coming!" and runs, not toward home, not toward freedom, but toward an apparition that may be death, madness, or both. This is where the novel's ending delivers its most chilling blow. Garrity's survival is not a gift. It is a curse. He has escaped the soldiers' rifles, but he has not escaped the walk. His body will continue, but his mind is trapped, enslaved by the endless road. King denies us closure, leaving Garrity suspended in madness, his victory transformed into the cruelest punishment of all. In this ending, the futility of survival is laid bare. The Major may hand him the crown, but Garrity will never wear it. He is not a champion, only the final victim of the march. The 2025 film, however, rewrites this collapse into something more explosive. Here, Garrity and McVrees remain the last two walkers, but the climax unfolds differently. Garrity, sensing his friend's breaking point, makes a choice of his own. Instead of pushing onward, he diverts McVrees' attention to the sky, to a bird, to something beyond the march. And in that fleeting distraction, Garrity stops. He takes the punishment, and he is executed on the spot. McVrees, stunned and shattered, is crowned the winner by default. This shift in agency, from Garrity collapsing into madness to Garrity choosing sacrifice, alters the meaning of the ending entirely. The novel ends with despair, the film with defiance, even if tragic. The Major arrives to present McVrees with the promised prize, but instead of celebration, McVrees is handed a ceremonial weapon, a hollow token of victory. Overcome with grief and rage, McVrees uses it to shoot the Major dead. It is a shocking act of rebellion, a violent rejection of the system that destroyed his friend and so many others. Yet even in this moment, the story denies catharsis. The soldiers remain, the regime remains, and McVrees walks into the darkness alone. His rebellion is a spark, not a revolution. He has struck back, but he has not toppled the machine. Like Garrity, he is left with emptiness, victory without peace. By placing these two endings side by side, we see how each medium chooses to interpret the futility of survival. The book embraces ambiguity and psychological horror. Garrity's hallucination forces us to confront trauma that never ends, even when the march is over. The film, shaped by the demands of cinema, chooses violence and spectacle. Garrity's sacrifice and McVrees' retaliation provide a sharper, more visual punch, satisfying the eye but still steeped in tragedy. Neither ending offers hope. Both insist that in a world where cruelty is the rule, winning only means carrying the heaviest burden of all. The contrast between these endings does not weaken the story, it strengthens it. Together they reveal the two possible outcomes of living under tyranny: collapse or revolt, madness or bloodshed. Garrity embodies the internal destruction of the spirit, McVree's the external defiance of violence. Both paths circle back to the same chilling conclusion. No one truly escapes. The walk continues, in the body, in the mind, or in the violence it plants inside its survivors. To understand why The Long Walk still resonates so powerfully, we have to look beyond the boys and their individual fates. At its core, this story is not just about Garrity, McVree's, or Stebbins. It is about the system that forces them to march, the spectacle that transforms their suffering into entertainment, and the audience that consumes it all without shame. This is where King's vision becomes terrifyingly familiar. The walk is not only punishment, it is performance. The nation gathers to watch children die step by step, cheering for endurance, gasping at collapse, and waiting to see who lasts long enough to be crowned winner. What King shows us is a world where cruelty has become normal, where death itself is televised as a show, and where survival is treated as entertainment rather than tragedy. In this way, the walk is not about victory, it is about control. The Major and his soldiers do not care who wins. They care that the boys keep marching, that the spectacle continues, that the machine keeps feeding itself with blood. Each death is not an accident. It is the point. The system thrives on it. This is why Garrity's hollow survival in the novel and McVree's violent rebellion in the film both feel so empty. Because even when one boy wins, the walk itself continues. The soldiers remain. The audience keeps watching. The next march will come, and another 100 boys will step onto the road. Victory is meaningless when the machine cannot be broken. This is also why the friendship between Garrity and McVree's matters so deeply. In a system designed to erase humanity, their bond is the one thing that feels real. They talk, laugh, argue, and dream, even while surrounded by death. It is this fragile connection that separates them from the others, and it is this same connection that defines both endings. In the book, Garrity loses McVree's and collapses into madness. His humanity shatters without that bond. In the film, Garrity sacrifices himself for McVree's, proving that friendship can survive even in the shadow of cruelty. And McVree's, fueled by that sacrifice, turns his grief into rebellion. Whether through collapse or defiance, it is their bond that drives the story to its conclusion. But the tragedy is that even this bond cannot truly save them. King makes sure of that. In the novel, Garrity's last words, "I'm coming," reveal that he is not running home to family or love, but chasing a phantom on the road. His mind has been consumed, his connection severed, his humanity erased. In the film, McVree's kills the Major, a symbolic act of defiance, but he does so alone, with no one left to share his burden. The rebellion is not a victory. It is an act of grief, born from the loss of the only real connection he had. Both versions drive home the same truth. In a system built on cruelty, even friendship can only delay the inevitable. This raises the central question of the long walk. What does it mean to win? For Garrity, survival means losing his mind, walking forever toward an illusion. For McVree's, survival means losing his closest friend and becoming a killer in the name of revenge. Both fates are poisoned. Both are empty. Winning in this world is not freedom, but another kind of prison. Psychological for Garrity, violent for McVree's. This is why the title of Winner feels like mockery. Because the boys do not win, the system does. Yet what makes the story unforgettable is how it forces us to confront our own role as an audience. Just as the fictional crowd cheers for the walk, we too read or watch with morbid fascination. We want to see who survives, how it ends, whether someone finds a way out. King's genius lies in holding up a mirror to us. By the time Garrity runs toward madness or McVree's fires his final shot, we realize the truth. We were part of the crowd all along. We were watching, waiting, consuming suffering as a story. And when the story ends, we are left with the same emptiness as the survivors. This is the bleak brilliance of The Long Walk. It is not just a story about boys on a road, it is a story about power, spectacle, and the futility of survival under tyranny. It shows us that systems of cruelty do not need happy endings, because they do not care about endings at all. They only care that the march continues. Garrity's madness, McVree's rebellion, Stebbins' collapse, all are just different variations of the same truth. No one escapes, no one wins, the walk goes on. The long walk is not about who crosses the finish line, because there is no finish line. It is about what the march takes away and what it leaves behind. Garrity's collapse in the novel and McVree's act of rebellion in the film are not answers. They are reflections of two different ways the human spirit can break under relentless cruelty. One bends inward, dissolving into madness, while the other lashes outward, exploding into violence. Both reveal the same truth. When a system is designed to strip away humanity, there is no such thing as victory. The genius of Stephen King's story and the power of its adaptation lies in their refusal to give us comfort. In the book, Garrity survives, but survival is revealed as its own kind of death. He is alive in body, but destroyed in spirit, his identity erased by trauma until all he can do is keep walking toward a phantom that may never be real. In the film, Garrity gives up his life to save McVree's, but even this act of sacrifice leads to nothing more than grief and bloodshed. McVree's kills the Major, yes, but he does not destroy the system. He does not topple the regime. He does not spark a revolution. He walks away alone, burdened by violence, haunted by loss. Whether in the silence of madness or the noise of rebellion, the story circles back to the same bleak conclusion. There are no winners, only survivors who carry scars too deep to heal. This is what makes The Long Walk stand apart from so much of dystopian fiction. Other stories often promise hope, resistance, or change. King promises none of that. His world is merciless, his system unbroken, his ending cruel. Yet that cruelty is precisely what makes the story ring true. Because in our world, too, systems of power endure, feeding on suffering, disguised as order or entertainment. We want stories where the tyrant falls, where rebellion sparks revolution, where survival leads to freedom. King denies us that fantasy. Instead, he gives us a mirror. He forces us to see that survival under tyranny is not freedom. It is endurance without peace, victory without meaning. The contrast between Garrity and McVree's also carries a deeper message. Trauma and rebellion are not opposites. They are two sides of the same wound. Garrity's madness shows how cruelty corrodes the mind, leaving only emptiness. McVree's defiance shows how cruelty breeds more cruelty, turning victims into weapons. Both are victims of the same system, and both carry the same burden. The walk does not end when the soldiers stop firing. The walk lives on in memory, in scars, in violence that cannot be undone. That is why the story lingers long after the final page or the closing credits, because it reminds us that suffering never stays on the road. It follows, it haunts, it shapes everything that comes after. And this is why The Long Walk remains one of Stephen King's most chilling works. It is not just horror, not just dystopia, but a meditation on power and cruelty. It shows us how systems strip away individuality, how spectacle disguises suffering, and how survival itself can become a prison. Whether Garrity whispers to a ghost or McVree's fires a bullet into the Major, the result is the same. The march goes on. The system remains, and the so-called winner is left broken, consumed, or lost. So why does The Long Walk end the way it does? Because it wants us to ask the hardest question of all. What does it mean to win in a world built to make you lose? For Garrity, victory means surrendering to madness, forever walking toward nothing. For McVree's, victory means carrying the guilt of his friend's death and the stain of blood on his hands. Neither path offers peace. Neither path offers freedom. The only real truth is that the system wins every time until someone does more than just walk or rebel in rage, until someone finds a way to stop the march entirely. And that, King suggests, may be the one ending we will never see. In The Long Walk, there are no heroes. There are no triumphs. There are only the broken, the sacrificed, and the defiant. Boys forced onto a road with no end, victims of a world that feeds on their suffering. The message is clear and inescapable. In a march designed by tyranny, survival is never victory. It is only another kind of loss.